Hi, everyone, and welcome to our town hall with Neil Mars from Germanna Community College on hiring and interviewing. This is the fifth in our series of 5 on hiring and interviewing that we've had with Neil. We thank him for sharing all of his knowledge. It has been very informative. This town hall is brought to you by Rappahannock Electric Cooperative and our Small Business Development Council. Neil, thank you for joining us again.
My pleasure, Jeff. Well, let me do this. I want to share my screen with you guys, and because I want to talk to you. We've got the fifth, as Jeff said, and final version of our presentation. And really, what we're talking about today is the fourth step in the process, and that is onboarding. Now, to step back a little bit and talk about it, we identified up front really 5 steps in the hiring process. Ongoing management, well, that's a whole different ball game, and we could do a whole series on that. But really, with step 4, this right here today, what we're going to cover is the 4th step, the last step here, where we're bringing somebody on board. You've made your decision, they've accepted the job, and we're bringing them on. Now, let's start by defining what it is, what onboarding is. And first of all, it really is measured from the time, and if you think about it, it measures from the time from the day the person accepts the job to about, and I've seen any up to 6 months, but let's say 3 months into their time with the company. At that point, after that, it transitions over into management. But really, onboarding is that period is from the moment they accept the job until they've been there for a period of time, and then it's formalizing the process is the key. So really, what you want to do is you want to use this step to, first of all, increase retention. You want to use this to build their loyalty. You want to use this to get them up to speed faster and to reduce the time and cost it takes you to do that. Now, I'm going to share some stats with you here, which to me fascinate me. But what this says is, and there's a lot of good news here, what this says is, first of all, that doing this part of the process well can improve retention by 82%. Think about that. Now, this one step can improve 82%, almost double your odds of keeping people. Secondly, I would tell you that something as simple as people having a buddy program, a mentoring program, where you're assigning, and I'll get to this in more detail in a second, assigning somebody to keep an eye on a new employee increases proficiency by 87%. These are easy things to do that have a huge impact. On the other hand, I will tell you that 58% of organizations say their onboarding process is just paperwork. That is a huge mistake. It's a step in the right direction, but you're missing some of the big elements of what you need to do. According to the survey, almost 90% of organizations don't do this part of the process well at all. And lastly, it says a negative experience doubles their odds of looking for a new job. I've seen other stats that said things like 86% of employees decide whether they're going to stay long-term at a company within the first 3 weeks. This part of the process is critical to ongoing success. Now, the good news, I will tell you, is that this is probably, of all the things we talked about, this may have the biggest impact on loyalty, is the most controllable. You have complete just about control over this entire process. It is also the least expensive. This is the cheapest thing to do, but it's also the most often skipped, things that people get past. Now, really, I would say that there are 3 key elements to the onboarding process. And the first one is administration. And really what you're focusing on here is of all the paperwork and all the things that have to happen to get the person up and going, you want to make them faster, and you want to make sure that more elected that they happen. You want to have a checklist someplace that says these things did happen. So these are things like, getting them connected into your benefits and payroll, tax forms that you've got to fill out. This is also things like equipment. That could be a cell phone, laptop, whatever kind of equipment they need, uniform if they need a shirt, any kind of garments. These are all the things, the administration of things that need to happen. And I've got a longer list in a moment. That gives you a sample of what it has to be. Now, the second one is socialization. And that is, and I'm going to use the expression of ego versus soul. To me, ego is the recognition of self. Soul is the recognition of that self being part of something larger. This is making the person, the new employee, feel like they are part of a family, that they're part of a bigger organization. And this is, you know, using this across when you've got different locations, you know, different shifts. If the person's working remote, this becomes even more challenging. Things you need to do here are things like, you know, how does somebody know about company values? How do you connect them to other people? And this could be things like podcasts or videos or other mentor programs, etc. And thirdly is productivity. Go back to one of the first sessions. We talked about identifying the 2 or 3 things the person needs to do. One of the primary drivers of employee satisfaction is tell me what you want from me. So being specific about what it is, the KPIs you're expecting, key process indicators you're expecting somebody, knowing what's likely to inhibit them, and doing everything you can to get them up to speed quickly. And those are things like telling them, here's what we're expecting from you. Scheduling issues, training that they need, certifications. These are all things that go into productivity. And we're going to break these out in detail, talk a little bit more about each one of them. Let's talk about administrative for a second. Now, payroll and benefits and tax, those are easy things. I should say easy. Those are things we all know about. You got to connect them to the right company paperwork. But it's also things like, you know, supplies. Do they need business cards? You know, do they need a computer? Are they part of the company directory? Do they have an email address? I tell you, email is huge. Email is something you're well served to get them connected with before they start. The sooner you can get them interacting with people, the better. Secondly, you also want to, you know, how are they going to communicate? Getting them a phone number, cell phone, and getting them that stuff as early as possible. An understanding, and this is an important one, an understanding of reporting responsibilities. If they're an hourly employee, how does the time clock work? How does pay work? How do those different systems that they're going to need to be involved with? And last but not least is workspace, and that is, you know, having their space ready for them and available when they get in and start. It is highly underrated having that space set up and making it obvious that some attention has gone into doing that. How much kind of value that has in a person's when they start. Well, I've got on here and in the presentation, and Jeff has a copy of it. There's a link to and there's a couple of places in here where I've got some links to some great resources if you want them, templates or spreadsheets or things that you can download or checklists that you can download to help you with these things. And that's one of them there. So one is administrative, all the things that needs to happen. Now the second one is maybe a little bit more complex, and that's socialization. And I got 2 great lessons stories that I'll tell you about this on socialization. One is, I can remember when I first started with my first job out of grad school, I worked at Kraft. And I can remember going to, and I had Anthony in my department, Anthony Bizzuto in my department. You need somebody that can do Hey Anthony's. I can remember there was a million things that I needed to know how to do that I didn't really want to go to my boss to have to ask stupid questions, or where is this, or is it okay to talk to this one this way, or can I just walk into so-and-so's office? All those things that you need to know that really are going to make your transition easier are critically important. So one is having somebody that person can go in and understand, explain the culture. As I said, something as simple as, you know, is it okay to just walk in and talk to the VP here? Or, no, you don't want to do that with him, but with these people you can. Those kind of things are critically important. I tell you, the second thing was a lesson learned that I had, a mistake that I made many years ago. And we hired a person, and my company's headquarters was here in Culpeper. And we hired a person from out of the area. So they moved, I believe it was from Ohio, someplace in the Midwest. And they left after about 6 months. And the person had done a good job and had done all the right things. But one of the things that I remember this person said to me was, you know what, you got so caught up in the day-to-day business. I don't think, did you ever even have me over for dinner? Would you ever even have a group to get together for dinner for me? And the answer was no. The person was treated well, was respected, but we didn't connect her. We didn't plug her into the soul of the organization, so to speak. So socialization, things that you need to do. Announcements, both internally and externally. Are you letting customers know? If you have a retail shop, are you telling somebody we've hired somebody new? How are you announcing it to your employees? How are you letting people connect with the company before they start? I think that's things like connecting the email helps initiate the socialization process. setting up the right types of formal meetings, having some type of a welcome gathering for the person, even if it's a cupcake at break time, something to say, hey, welcome Jeff. We're glad to have you here. We're excited to have you part of the team. What are you doing to let the community know that this person is new? It could be as simple as having a sign. If you're a retail shop here in Culpeper, a sign on the door saying, welcome Jeff Say to our team. Think how good that's going to make somebody feel to do that. And here's the subtle one, but important one. How do you connect the person's family? Depending on the situation, is what can you do to recognize their goal and contribution? Particularly if somebody's moved or relocated, still is an issue with anybody else. Probably one of the most impactful things anybody ever did to me was when I came to Culpeper, the CEO of the company, the man I worked for at the time, after I accepted the job and before I started, sent a dozen roses to my wife and said, welcome to the family. I cannot begin to tell you the impact that had on me. Something as simple as something like that, connected to, it's nice what you do for me, but it's even more important what you do for the family. So what are you doing to connect with the person's family or circle of information?
And Neil, if I could interject real quick, Neil, talk about the community and welcoming folks. The Culpeper Chamber of Commerce and any Chamber of Commerce is a great way to do that, is to be able to spread that information through news releases, through our Facebook posts. We are a resource, and we encourage our local businesses to use us as a resource to welcome new team members, because that's what we're here for.
Couldn't agree with you more, Jeff. I'm glad you said that. That's a great point. It sounds subtle, but put yourself in that spot and how nice it would feel to have an announcement go out to, hey, welcome Neil Mayers to the Chamber of Commerce team, or whatever the situation. Those things are critically important. How are you also, here's another important one. How are you introducing this person, this new employee, to the company culture? I've seen big companies have messages from CEOs. I've seen, it could be something as simple as just a time on the first day to walk in and see the owner or the boss. But what information on the company are you providing them that can make them feel like they're part of something special? History of your organization. Think about what it is you're providing them. YouTube could be a great source of that too. And last but not least is a mentor. And I know we talked about that briefly before, and it can be either formal or informal, but something that you can do to connect that person to somebody in the company. And it doesn't have to be elaborate, but just something you say, listen, Jeff just started with the company. I'm going to be responsible for kind of keeping an eye on him for the first 6 months to a year and making sure he gets everything he needs. You saw the data. Something as simple as that can almost double the person's likelihood of staying. So what are you doing for this new employee to introduce them to the culture of the organization? Third and lastly, in terms of productivity, there's a ton of things, and we'll start with those KPIs. Telling somebody right from the start what it is they need to do to be successful. There's 20 things you need to do, but here are the 2 or 3 that we're going to measure that you need to really focus on. Are you providing them a list of customers? What kind of data are you giving them to help them start to dig in? Certifications, whether they're company certifications. I know with many companies there are certain safety certifications that are needed. There's what I'm going to call the compliance-oriented certifications, where you got to sit and listen to the video and get the certificate saying you did it, and those are fine. But what kinds of certifications does that person need to be able to do their job effectively, and how quickly are you providing that to them? What kinds of industry information are you providing them to understand who the competition is and what your point of differences are versus them? Training certainly is an important one and an easier one to understand. One that companies tend to do a little better at, but things like it's do I need computer training? Is it a skill? Do I need training on computer? Do I need customer service training? Do I need to know something about the industry itself that I'm in? Maybe it's something about the workplace specifically. And how am I connecting people to peers, both in my company, maybe peers outside the company? Now, the good news, once again, is here. This is a graphic that shows. As we're wrapping up here, I'm going to tie it to what we talked about at the beginning. So this is another study that was done. I said, what do they want? And it's they want, the big answers. I want one time with my manager to know that if it's 5-10 minutes a week, that's fine. But I want to know that I'm talking to him. I want you to tell me what the performance goals. How am I increasing the values? Who do I need to meet? Exposure, training. These are all things that people are saying, and they tie right back to, from our very first presentation, this employee engagement survey. And these 12 things, I won't go through them, but are the 12 things that Gallup has done for decades to say, this is what this is what drives loyalty. Loyalty is the key to productivity. Engagement is the key to loyalty. So if people are engaged, and engaged means I'm spending incremental time or discretionary time on my job, what am I doing to do that? And it comes from these things. So are you recognizing and socializing them? Are you making your expectations clear? And are these results achievable? And do they believe they're achievable? So if you're doing these things, this is good things are going to happen. Now, one of the things that and I'll get to specific recommendations, but I can't stress enough, you need a checklist. Somebody has to be, I would also tell you, has to be the keeper of a checklist for new employees. And it doesn't have to be fancy, but maybe it's in their employee file, and there's lots of things you can either download. I've got a link there to a place you can download it, but just a list of things that you need to do to get somebody started. It's amazing how much that list will make your life easier. Smart, they need to be smart. Smart goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. They need to be specific. It isn't as introduce them to everybody. It's, on Thursday, I'm gonna have cookies from Knackles, and we're gonna bring people in, and we're gonna have everybody meet the new employee. Small but important point. You got to identify who's responsible for this. Is it the supervisor, the owner, whoever it is? Somebody's name needs to be at the top of that. That's responsible for coordinating everybody's efforts to make this work. Now, some ideas, some specific ideas I can give you on how to do this. I said, some things that you can do in this day and age that are easy. Maybe you have a hidden place on your website where you can link them so you don't have to need a new server, where a new employee can go in and view information that the public might not be aware of or wouldn't be able to see. Or it could be a YouTube channel, or it could be something else, where after the candidate accepts your job, that they can go in a portal, they can go in and start seeing information, things like podcasts or YouTube, welcome from the CEO, something about the company history, someplace where there's a repository of information that you can have to indoctrinate a new employee. As I said, particularly if you're doing this often, that way you don't have to keep repeating it. So if you have a repository someplace of, we've got all of this information here for new employees, it can make your life a lot easier and make them a lot happier. A completion, it could include that repository, could also include that checklist. One of the things, and I'll digress just a bit, back in the day, we used to use it when I was with RUS. We used to use a training market plan. And what it was a list of all the things the new sales rep used to have to do to be successful. It was very detailed, and it worked like a charm. It worked for two reasons. One is because they were the right activities, but equally as important because it gave people faith in the company and the job when they saw this. Oh, that's a great tool they have for me. So as important as the actual elements on it is the fact that how much faith it's going to instill in your employees to have a checklist or have these things available. So we talked about checklists. One of the things that I think an idea for you is to take people that you've hired in the past year or two, and you buy them a coffee. You take them to Raven's Nest and you buy them a coffee, and you tell them to identify what could have been done better what worked well for their onboarding and what they would have liked. You could do it an hour or two and come up with some great ideas and things that you might not have come up with before. So it's getting people that have gone through it recently to tell you what did they like or what could have been better. That's important. I told you about the flowers. Some type of pleasant surprise before the first day. I've seen people having a wine basket when they when they moved into town or when they accepted the job, or a gift certificate, or I've had people start somebody. I had this happen to me once. They started me on the payroll a week early. Didn't cost them a ton of money. Didn't cost them a ton of money. It cost them a week's worth. So it wasn't a bonus or a part of their base salary that you had to pay an increase on next year. But it was a nice thing. And it was a simple thing that somebody could do. But find something that you can do to pleasantly surprise them. Maybe it's having their cards done or a shirt with a company logo on it before their first day. I give you that idea. okay? And I do is, like I said, within the first month, find some way to have an event that involves their family at all. And last on this, just have everything ready when they start. You're going to need it soon. Take a few minutes, a few days before they start, and have the stuff waiting for them. You'd be amazed at not only will having that get them started quicker, but the confidence that will instill in somebody. Now, just a couple summary things. I said, this is not rocket science. It's not, you're not having to do a lot of new stuff, and it doesn't cost you a lot of money. This is easy stuff to do. It's even more important if your company's growing. If you've got any specific questions, that's where you can get a hold of me. Now, with that said, I want to wrap up and talk about, as we've concluded this series, I want to wrap up and just talk about a couple of things real quickly. I want to start talking about Germanna and some of the things that Germanna is doing to serve the community here. In addition to, and if you haven't been out to the Daniel Center, I strongly urge you to go out and take a look at that. It is a world-class facility. Right here in our community, we have a world-class education facility that's committed to the well-being of the business community in this town. So in addition to having a facility right here in town, there's a number of things the school does that you may or may not be aware of. The Workforce Development Group, in addition to having a program that my son is enrolled in, that is training people for skilled labor opportunities here in this community. Companies I'm watching as I pull in every time I go into Daniel Center, the construction of the facility right here in town to help provide that training, even more local training. So Germanna is working hard to grow the skilled labor pool in this community, which is a desperate need they have. They also, something that a lot of people aren't aware of, is we're starting a program now called College Everywhere that is focused on an accelerated program with a series of 5-week online courses for people to be able to complete their associate's degree in 12 to 18 months. So that is if you have any questions on that, please feel free to ask me, but that's something that we have done for the community because there's been a request for it. A couple of other things that we are doing that you may not realize as well. And first of all, we will be in the fall offering live online classes, which means we are during the pandemic, we have gone virtual, which most schools are doing to a large degree anyway. Matter of fact, almost all colleges are virtual or virtually virtual. So, but with that said, we had a request. The president was requested. We announced that last May. The student government came and said, Dr. Gullickson, we want direct instruction. So we are providing for our major curriculum. Like I am the person doing it for Germanna for business and marketing classes. We're going to have live online classes. We're going to have a Zoom classroom that looks just like that, where students are going to have the ability to interact with me and the other faculty, have the discipline of the schedule, and be able to maintain a high degree of interaction with the professor. So and it's not just throwing it online. I can tell you that we've gone through a lot of training to increase our proficiency and ability to do that. And last but not least, we understand that we are going through the school understands, we all understand we are going through, diversity and social upheaval issues. And our school has put together a anti-racism mission statement and a number of other training and opportunities for us to make sure that everyone in our community has a seat at the Germanna table. Last but not least, one real quick thing I did want to mention is that, as I think I started talking about before, I've done my own consulting over the past number of years. Meliora is one of my favorite sayings. It was a saying of my university. I went to the University of Rochester in New York. Meliora was our school motto. It really means the pursuit of the better, which I've always loved. And there's a number of things that I've been able to work with to help companies with as well. Helped one national client develop a skilled labor hiring network across North America. I've helped another company, and we talked about job profiles, and I talked about this during one of my sessions, took the job, and now did a job analysis and job description on their field managers, found a new source of people to hire from, and if all of their top managers now come from that new template. Worked with another client to help them take the sourcing they were using from Indeed and ZipRecruiter and places like that, saved them more money than they were spending on it, and got better results. Helped another client do sales and database realignment, where I took their what had been kind of a dead database and made it active, added actually 15% of their total company sales, multi-million-dollar company from doing that. And last but not least, did through a series of customer interviews come up with a corporate-wide quality program. If any of these has anything, any of these topics have issue to you, please let me know, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. With that said, Jeff, are there any questions? Is there anything else that I could answer with you think at this point?
Absolutely. So one question that popped in my head when you were talking about the workspace and how to make people feel comfortable, how does that translate now in a COVID-19 world when the workspace is a lot of folks are working from home? I do know of several jobs that have hired folks and yet they're still working remotely. How does that impact onboarding?
That's a great question. And one of the things, so what you're saying is that if I'm onboarding somebody from home, how do I do that? And there's two different dimensions of that. One is the interview process has been virtual, but their job is going to be live. I do have a client, for example, that's doing that. That really has been much more straightforward because once you plug them in live, they're back into the more of a typical swing. This client happens to be dealing with the pharmaceutical industry, which has an extraordinarily high degree of safety and compliance that they need for their employees. So it's a very safe environment. It's a great question on the people that are onboarding with virtually. And the only thing that I'll tell you is, to me, it's not fundamentally dissimilar, Jeff, than either the sales or customer service processes with companies or education. And one of the things that I've learned is the lines between live and online are blurring. And I know that there's a lot of things that we can do. I don't necessarily believe that Zoom is as robust a socialization tool as live is and never will be. But you know what? It's pretty darn close. It really is. There's things you're going to miss from it, but because of the opportunities you have from being able to be more frequent with it and do it a lot more and save time and money doing it, I think it makes it fair. I think the overall package makes it fairly close. So I know a lot of us, particularly as we get used to it, we're doing a lot more. We're more comfortable using Zoom or tools like this. There's other professional tools as well, things like Microsoft Teams. I don't know if you're familiar with Teams, but where that have for the company, that's a little bit more focused on somebody that's going to use it within their company, and that has great like file sharing data and capabilities and things like that. Also, we'll talk about, it's amazing in this day and age. I have a client of mine, actually a friend of mine that works for a division of W.W. Grainger. Are you familiar with Grainger?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're a big multi-billion-dollar a year industrial wholesaler. And they're a division of theirs, and their life's blood was in their call center. Second week of March hits, they're sending their call center home. Tremendous fear from that. We are taking our moneymaker and sending them to work on laptops in their kitchen. And you know what? Their business is flat this year. They're pleasantly surprised. They're pleased. In this day and age, between the different software tools and the different tools and metrics that we have, I think a lot of this is much more doable now than it was even 3 or 4 years ago. So long-winded way of saying, I think there's a variety of tools you can use. Technology tools you can use. I don't say to make the socialization part in particular as good, but it's close.
There's still engagement. I mean, certainly it is. You're able to still. It's not the same. Just having these virtual town halls, and we've still been able to connect with folks and through our YouTube channels, website. It's finding new and innovative ways to do what we've done in the past.
Here's what for Germana, for typically speaking, office hours, and that's a topic the faculty talks about often. Because you know what, students never come to office hours ever. They don't. Or very rarely. I've had more students, I did more one-on-one meetings via Zoom in the last 2 weeks of my summer semester than I had all of let's say the fall. I had more one-on-one meetings with students because this is easier.
Do they feel more comfortable? Do they feel more comfortable because they've been raised in this digital age, that they're more comfortable in front of a camera, in front of a device?
I think in many cases, yes. I think that's a big part of it. they're more comfortable than my generation probably is. I mean, I'm getting comfortable with it. I'm learning too, but they're probably more comfortable with it. I think it's logistically easier. So yeah, I think they're very comfortable. Like I said, to me, I thought it was fantastic. I think it's, I mean, I want, if they've got questions, I want them to come and talk to me about it. One of the things I tell my kids that when we're doing that is that go talk to your teachers uh, at office hours, because they like talking about this stuff. Okay, so yes, I think they're more comfortable, and I think it's easier to do it.
Awesome. Well, Neil, I want to say thank you again for having these town halls with us. This one was brought to you by Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, and they've all been sponsored by our Small Business Development Council. This has been an amazing resource. We've been sharing this on the Culpeper Chamber of Commerce website. It's on our YouTube page, and it has also been posted to our Facebook page. I just want to reiterate that for the hiring and interviewing process, that there are opportunities to post jobs on the Culpeper Chamber of Commerce website. Those are automatically shared out via our social media to our Facebook page. And that also includes news releases. If you'd like to welcome aboard a new team member, that we have resources available. You just have to reach out. Again, communicate with us, talk to Amy Frazier, our events coordinator, or myself, and we will be happy to help you navigate the new digital world of it, be able to welcome folks to our community. Because for me, it's all about that engagement. It's all about welcoming everyone to our Culpeper community. And I want to thank Neil for helping our community, helping our business community during this time to find new ways of promoting, hiring, and interviewing during COVID-19. So Neil, thank you once again,
My
and
pleasure.
again soon.
Thank you.